to discuss the legality or not of the process, I spoke with a legal practitioner, Mr. Wahab Shitu. Mr. Shitu is also a public affairs commentator, and he writes several columns in some of Nigeria's dailies. He's also a senior law lecturer at the University of Lagos.
The nature of impeachment is such that it is both a political as well as a legal weapon. And people must understand it in this context if they want to fully appreciate the nature of impeachment. It is normally deployed sometimes as a tool, of securing advantage. It's a legal weapon in that it is specific provisions relating to how you can go about sustaining impeachment are provided in the Constitution. And political, in the sense that in a democracy you have separation of powers. The judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. And then the spirit of the notion of separation of powers is that one arm of the government should not ordinarily interfere with the operations of the other arm.
There must be independence.
There must be independence. And as such, impeachment is seen as something within the prerogative, province of the legislature. And so it is seen as their internal affair. And so long as they comply with the relevant processes for sustaining impeachment, the judiciary will be reluctant to interfere. And that's why you see Section 188, subsection 10 of the Constitution stipulates that the judiciary will not interfere so long as in the processes, as well as the determination of the panel that will determine whether the impeachment allegations be investigated. So, but having said that, so long as the procedures stipulated in the Constitution in Section 188 down to Section 188, subsection 11, are complied with, then the court will not interfere. You see, you cannot blame politicians for wanting to capture political power, and then if you then give them all kinds of avenues to be able to do this, then you cannot be seen to complain. If you want to complain, then what you necessarily must do is to provide adequate safeguards in the Constitution in order to forestall abuse.
So by adequate safeguards, we need to expressly state out
what actions will constitute gross misconduct.
Yes.
What action will constitute gross misconduct in order to forestall abuse. If you do not state that, then you leave
things
open. And what is happening now, the blame on what is happening now generally should be placed at the doorstep of the political elite. And I'm not particularly singling out any political party for blame. All of them are guilty. Yes. You see, our democracy has been turned into a government of the politicians, by the politicians, and for the politicians. So you find out that, like this impeachment now, it is the political elite who will determine whether or not they want to proceed on impeachment, without regard to whether it's a popular view in the public sphere.
Yeah, because we've seen people come out on the streets to protest and say that whatever the lawmakers are doing in some of the states, they're on their own. We see people carry placards, take to the street. The citizens of the state say, we're behind our government. Does that count for anything?
Well, it doesn't count as far as compliance with the processes stipulated under Section 188 is concerned. Popular protest or arranged protest or whatever. You see, when there is this kind of protest, you have to also be careful. Yeah. Whether it's stage managed or it's popular and all that. But you see, all those protests are not reckoned with in the Constitution. And the sovereignty, which also belongs to the people, is taken away from them in the impeachment proceedings by the House, who will determine whether or not to proceed with the impeachment procedure or not. So you see, that is one area that should be of serious concern. But for us as commentators and those some of us who subscribe to the theory of the rule of law, I think what should be critical is that our politicians, because we practice democracy, must be prepared at all times and allow themselves to be guided at all times by the democratic tenets. In other words, we cannot claim to be practicing democracy if the practitioners are not prepared to be Democrats. And how do you ensure that you are a Democrat? Is by being guided in your actions by the fundamentals of the democratic tradition. Respect for constitutionalism, respect for the rule of law, respect for due process, freedom of the electoral process, transparency and accountability, zero tolerance for corruption. More importantly, allowing your actions to be guided at all times by the democratic tenets, the democratic culture. And I think that is where we are missing it. Our politicians are not yet prepared. Most of our politicians are not yet prepared to be guided by the fundamentals of the democratic tradition. Indeed, the impeachment clause in the Constitution is supposed to serve a useful purpose. It's supposed to be an avenue to throw away an unpopular government, a government that is conducting itself in a manner antithetical to its mandate, where gross misconduct is committed, violations of the Constitution, where a government is not delivering on its promises in terms of democracy dividends, then the impeachment option can be deployed to remove such a government. But you see, the fear is the danger of abuse. But I can tell you for free that our courts will normally interfere, will usually interfere where the Constitution is subverted. So the impeachment clause in the Constitution is subject to the supremacy clause of the Constitution. So where actions are taken, where the processes is abused, where there is a gross violation of the Constitution in carrying out any impeachment, you can be sure that such an impeachment will be set aside.
And that's the check and balance.
That's the check and balances, So being a political as well as a legal option. Political in the sense that the court will not ordinarily interfere, because it believes that it is something within the internal affairs of the House to carry out. But it's a legal option in the sense that you must do so constitutionally. You must follow the provisions of the Constitution to the letter in sustaining an impeachment. Where you violate these provisions of the Constitution, then the court, as the custodian of the Constitution, will come out to set aside. You have seen that occur in the past, happen in the Ladoja case and all that. But I am not particularly surprised that the impeachment option is being deployed now. There's a lot of scheme for 2015.
The former governor of Adamawa State, Murtala Nyako, has been declared wanted by the EFCC, and this is not the first time we're seeing this kind of situation in Nigeria. But there are people who think that must we wait for a governor to be impeached before we can finger them for corrupt practices?
A governor is not just an ordinary citizen. He enjoys a lot of immunity under the law. And while he is serving as a governor, you cannot try him or sustain any criminal, proceedings against the governor. But time does not run against the state. So immediately he's impeached. His cover is blown up. So he's vulnerable. He can be arrested, provided there are, allegations, sustainable allegations pending against him while he was serving as a governor. So you see, the fact that EFCC has declared him wanted may not be unconnected with allegations against him pending that ordinarily would not make EFCC to proceed against him because by virtue of the fact that he enjoyed immunity. So you see, what is important is that allegations can be made against anyone. What is important is that when allegations are made, everybody concerned, including the anti-graft agencies, must follow the rule of law in ensuring that those allegations are not, frivolous or carried out in an arbitrary manner.
If you want to know what's trending or you miss your favorite live shows, you can watch it all on our YouTube channel. Simply log on to www.youtube.com/channelsweb, scroll down to your favorite program and click play. You can also view all uploaded videos by clicking on View All. Don't forget to subscribe and get the latest videos. If they are interesting, like them and be heard. Get connected with the channel's television YouTube page. The news at your fingertips.
Moving on, it's no more news that most of the courts across the country have shut down for the annual vacation. and where there should have been some skeletal legal services, especially in state courts, to attend to urgent cases, the judiciary workers' strike has paralyzed activities. But despite this, legal practitioners turned up last week Thursday at the Ikeja Bar Center in Lagos to honor their departed colleague, the late Bamidele Aturu. Mr. Aturu passed on after a brief illness on Wednesday, the 9th of this month, and the lawyers held a valedictory service to pay their last respects to a man they describe as bold, fearless, humane, and humble. Before his death, the late Aturu was a human rights activist, a social critic, an author, and a notable legal practitioner.
I commend the life of Bamidele Aturu to each and every one of us. When you serve and you serve diligently, people notice. It is not a question of money. It is not a question of age.
From the Bar Center, the lawyers joined as family members, relatives, and friends at the Victory Mega Chapel of the Redeemed Church, where a commendation service was held for the late Aturu, who was also one of the pastors at the church.
The bar represented here, we appreciate the contribution of Bamidele Aturu because, especially in Ikeja branch, whenever the need arose, either to deliver papers, to act in more capacity or a committee, it was forthcoming. It was prepared. It was always there. Therefore, the loss is not to the family alone, but to us in the legal profession.
His adherence to ideological and revolutionary principles and practical demonstration of commitment to the struggle for the socialist transformation of Nigeria, which has been an essential part of his activist life since he assumed the leadership role as the Secretary of the Patriotic Youth Movement of Nigeria, PYMN, chapter in Adamawa College of Education, came to national limelight when he rejected the NYSC Best Copper Award in Niger State in 1988. His rejection of that award and the refusal of handshake with the undemocratic and defunct military administrator Colonel Gwadabe cost him the non-release of his NYSC certificate till date.
Bamidele Aturu was born in October 1964. He died after a brief illness on the 9th of July at the age of 49. He is survived by aged parents, his wife, and 3 children. His body was committed to earth last week Friday in his hometown of Bagiakoko in Ondo State.
We have just lost an extraordinary Nigerian of immeasurable stature. Aturu was a visionary. He was a scholar. He was a lawyer. He was a humanist. I think, and he was very, very, very genuine in his advocacy.
On a personal note, actually, I miss most of all his sense of humor. Strangely enough, although he was an activist, a revolutionary, a comrade, and all of those other things, as well as a man of great integrity, we actually used to have more of a giggle, a bit of a laugh together. So I think that what I miss most of all is those opportunities, those occasions when something would happen in the news or something, and he would call me up and we would chat about it and we'd have a laugh. But then I think that also, you know, on a less personal note, it's impossible not to miss somebody who made such an impact on the lives of many people that he touched.
He was somebody who dared to walk where others feared to walk, and he was a man of his words. If he says something, he means it, and he does not. He criticized who are to be criticized and commended who are to be commended. He was not blinded as a human rights fighter to know that in some situations, some people have still done something good for the society. They may be in the wrong party, it doesn't matter to him, but then he stood his ground. He will be missed by the legal profession, no doubt about that.
This is where we end today's episode of the program. These and past episodes are on our YouTube page. And do let's interact via Facebook, email, or Twitter. I'm Shola Shieli. Thank you for watching.